Hi everyone. In the last video, we have discussed about how to install Docker Desktop on Windows, and we have seen how we can run Kubernetes on top of Docker Desktop. In this video, we are going to discuss about how to create containers inside of pod and how we can run pod and how we can log inside of the pod and how to collect the logs of pod and how to describe the pod and how to create the pod in multiple ways, such as we do have two types of creation of pods, such as imperative way and declarative way. So we'll discuss about all those things on detailed way, and we can see how we can simply create the pod, even not writing the YAML file. So we would see all those things in this lecture. So let's discuss about what is meant by pod. So pod is a collection of it's a component of Kubernetes, and these pod and containers do tightly coupled uh, instead of Kubernetes node. It may be a master, it may be a worker node. So the question here is that do we run Kubernetes pods instead of master? The answer is yes. Yeah, you can run, but it's not a good practice to run pods instead of masters. And but usually pod do schedule on worker nodes, and it get access to the end user. So we will see what all components are available in the pod, and we'll see what all descriptions and all. And so before creating the pod, I would like to take you to the Kubernetes official documentation. I'll show you what is exactly mean by pods and all. So here I'm going to Kubernetes docs, and I'm going instead of this documentation, I'm searching with the pod. So if I see here, pod, the definition of pods are smaller deployable units of computing that can be created and managed in Kubernetes. And pod is a group of one or more containers. That means like you can run more than one container inside of pod, and which share the storage and network resources. That's true. You know, you can if you're running multiple containers instead of pod, you can share the networks, resources, and all. So this is the smallest definition of the pod. But if you see here, if we want to create a pod with a container, so Kubernetes is saying, hey, if you want to create a container instead of the pod, and if you want to create a pod itself, so you should have to communicate with me in a two ways. One is declarative way. This is the way you need to communicate with me. You need to pass some set of keywords and in a particular format such as YAML or JSON. But we have another way, that is imperative way, where you can pass the command level arguments and this pod gets created. So let's see first in a imperative way how we can create a pod in a Kubernetes cluster. So for that, first we need to run Docker desktop. So if you want to create a pod, so first you need to run the Docker desktop. So once you open the Docker desktop, my case it is up and running. You can see here it's the Docker engine. This is the Kubernetes is running successfully, and I'm going to open any one of the terminal. So you can use command prompt, you can use PowerShell, you can use Git Bash, and you can use any command line interface to perform this activity. So here, my Docker desktop is running, everything is set up. So I'm jumping into the terminal. So here I would like to check how my master node is behaving. For that, we do have a set of command to communicate with the Kubernetes cluster. So if you want to see status of your node, which is Docker desktop, and you do have to pass some set of commands. For that, you can pass kubectl. So kubectl is a command line interface where you can communicate from your Kubernetes environment. So kubectl get nodes. So kubectl get nodes is the command where you can press enter. It will show you what all nodes are present in your environment. And in my case, we have a Docker desktop and it is ready state, and we call it as control plane since it is managing everything, and we call it as control plane. And this is the age and this is the version. So my case version is v1.228.2. So sorry, v1.28.2. This is my version of my API. This is the API version. So since we do have a node, so which is we call as Docker desktop. So in our hand, we would like to create a pod instead of Kubernetes cluster. And instead of pod, we would like to create one container. So let's take the example. We would like to create a container inside of the pod that has um, Nginx. So As I said, we have imperative ways also create a pod instead of Kubernetes cluster. So before that, I would like to show you what all pods are running instead of my Kubernetes cluster. That is, kubectl is a command. Get pods is a command where it will going to show you what all pods are running instead of your cluster or node. So in my case, I don't have any pods are get up and running, so that's why it is not showing no resources found in default namespace. So we'll discuss about what is in my namespace in a coming session. So I would like to clear this session. So I'm going to create a container inside of the pod. The container is nginx image. I'm going to use it. For that, I need to pass kubectl is a command line, and I would like to create a container inside of pod, which is nginx. So I would like to pass command as a run, and my container name would be, my pod name would be nginx. This is my pod name, and I'm going to keep it as a capital. And I would like to create a container instead of this nginx pod, which is nginx container. So that's okay. Let me clarify it. So I'm not going to keep this container name as a nginx, so you may get confusion. So what I will do, I will create another name for this. So let me do my pod. So my pod is the name of the pod that we are going to create, and I'm going to use image of nginx. So here I'm going to use image of nginx. So what it will do, it will pull the image from the image registry, and it will convert image to container, and it will run inside of my pod. So if I press enter, it will create the uh, container nginx instead of my pod. But I would like to see whether it is doable or not by checking with dry run. So for that, I am going to check dry hyphen dry hyphen run is equal to client. So if I do enter, it is saying dry run got succeeded. So it is a successful command where you can press and where you can execute into Kubernetes cluster. So doesn't show any errors. So if I press enter, what it will do? It is saying invalid my pod lowercase. Okay, she's showing some lowercase. Guess my bad. It should be lowercase. Let me let me clear this. So I should enter lowercase my pod. For see here, the pod got created. So the pod name is my OD. Oh my god, I gave a pod name as my OD. My bad, it's a spelling mistake. But yeah, the pod got created with the command line interface itself. I haven't created any YAML file. Usually, like in a Kubernetes, if you want to create a pod, you have to write on sort of YAML file the syntax, and you need to run that file. Then only those resources will be created. But since we are discussing about the imperative way, in a command line, how we can create the resources with the Kubernetes. So if you want to see the whether pod got created or not, and I would like to see the health check of the pod, so I need to pass kubectl get pods. If you see here, my this command, what it is did, it contacted my Kubernetes cluster, and it would bring the what all pods running inside of my node, which is Docker desktop. So in our case, my pod name is my pod, and it is running state, and the age is 41 seconds. There is no any restarts. We'll discuss about what is meant by restarts in upcoming section. Do not worry about it. So this is the way where you can create the pod on imperative way, and we have a you know so we have a different ways, like, and as we discussed, we have imperative way and descriptor. uh, uh, oh, sorry, I have some microphone issue. Yeah, so we have created a pod in imperative way, and let's discuss about how we can create a pod in declarative way. Like, we need to write YAML syntax or JSON syntax. So for that, we when we give all the keywords along with the syntax, so that's declarative way. What it will do, it will create a resource that we have use the same like in an imperative way. So for that, we need to jump into the official documents of Kubernetes. It is saying, hey, if you want to create a pod, so you have to pass set of components in a file. The first component is saying API version. So as we've seen, like, while we check the kubectl get pod get nodes. So what this command did, it's showing what all API version you're using. So since we have discussed about what all components or what all operation is happening inside of Kubernetes, it is happening through API. So that's where you need to specify the API version. Our case is API version is v1 and kind. So what resources are going to create? What all Kubernetes objects that you are going to create? For that, you need to specify kind. So in our case, we are going to create as a pod. So that's why you're going to create give a kind as a pod, and later metadata. So in that metadata, you're going to specify what is the name of your pod. So my case, I'm going to create name is nginx. In a specification, in a specification section we are going to give a exact information of our pod and what all ports it's going to use. So here we have given containers. So you can ask me a question, why not container, why it's showing containers? Because in a single pod we have discussed we can run multiple containers. That's why in a specification it's showing as a container, and we have given as array. So if you want to create one container instead of this pod, you can create it. If you want to create a multiple containers instead of this pod, you can create it. Yeah, but the syntax is same. So here our case, we are passing the name is nginx and the image. This is the name of the container. So don't confuse. This name is related to pod, and this name is related to our container because it is in container section, and this is the container name, and image is our nginx, and this is the version of image, and you are opening the ports for our container, which is 80. So this is the basic introduction about the declarative way syntax. So what I'm going to here, I'm going to create a file which is Kubernetes pod or pod YAML file. So I'm going to use nano editor, nano pod.yaml. Oh god. Okay. So since nano has not been installed here, what I will do, I will go to git bash. So since since I was using Visual Studio Code, that's why it is not working. So I'm using the git bash here. I'm going to create the same resources over here. So we can do the same operations whatever we have done in Git Visual Studio Code over here too. So in our case, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create the pod. So I'm going instead of sorry, nano. I have to create a pod.yaml. So nano editor has opened. So this is a nano editor where we used editing our files in a command line interface. So, and if you see the YAML file, the first component is API version. I'm going to write API, but V should be capital, and that's the syntax of the YAML file. The Kubernetes documentation has specified, and the API version is V1, and this is the API version we're using. And the second one is kind. So kind is like what object that we are going to create. So that's the one is pod. So in our case, we are going to call as a pod. So P should be capital, and this is the kind. And next is metadata. So metadata is a section which is showing information about the pod. So and you need to press the colon and enter. Again, you need to give that tab. So it's going to take the same YAML syntax, because in YAML syntax we need to specify the tabs if you are giving any object references underneath. So in our case, metadata, and we are going to give a name of this pod, which is I'm going to give as a name. So that is a demo pod. So this is the name of my pod, and later I'm going to give a specification of and specification of container. So that's why I'm going to the space section. So this space section is related to containers and volumes and volume mounts. So we have a different concept we'll discuss in the coming session. But we are going to create a one container inside of the pod. That's why in the spec section is related to containers. So I'm going to pass containers as a key. So here container is because of why I given a container instead of containers, because in a single pod we can run multiple containers. That's why I have given containers as a keyword. And later I'm going to pass the name of my container, that is name. I'm going to give a as a key, and the value is nginx, and I need to pass the image. So that's the image I'm going to use as nginx. So this is the sample YAML syntax of the pod. So So first one we have written is a API version is a v1, and kind is that what object you are going to create. In our case, we are going to create a pod object, and later metadata related name of the pod and specification. This section is related to containers. So once you have written the pod, once you have written this pod definition file, so you need to enter control X and Y and enter. So in our case, we have write the Kubernetes pod YAML file. So if you want to see it, you can see it by cat pod.yaml. So it is going to print all the syntax that you have written inside of this YAML file. So if you want to create the object that we have written in this file, so you need to run that file. Since we have just created the file, just we have created the file, but we need to run these components. Oh, you haven't specified the port, but yeah, it doesn't matter if you have specified the ports or not while you're creating the pod. Um, so if you want to apply the object that you have written instead of YAML file, so you need to run few commands. The command is kubectl and apply is a command. You need to specify the file -f as a file. So what is our file? Our file name is pod.yaml. So this is our file name. And if you enter this, so what it will do, it will create all the objects that you have specified inside of this YAML file. You see here, pod, demo pod created. If I want to check the whether pod has created or not, the command is kubectl get pods is the command. If I press enter, if you see here, so in a 16 seconds ago, my pod got created. So this is how, guys, you can create the pods instead of you can create the pod in the Kubernetes. And if you want to check the whether pod is running or not, if you want to check the logs, I would like to see kubectl describe the describe pod and the pod name. So I would like to see the I would like to see the logs of pod. So I would like to see gives a describe pod name. That's the command to run it. If I do enter, so what it will show all the information of my pod. So what is a pod name and is a namespace and priority, service accounts, what is the starting date, and what is the node it took to run on. So this is the node and this is the IP address of my node, and what is the labeling and status, IP address of the pod, and what is the container instead of it is getting running. If you see here, guys, we have used the nginx image. That's why it is showing as image, and this is my image ID. And if I come all the way to the down, it will show you saying that successfully assigned to the default desktop to the pod to desktop. So it is assigning first for scheduling purpose, and later it is pulling the image. It is pulling the image from the remote image registry. So in our case, we can consider it as a Docker hub. So it is pushing the image from Docker hub. So if you see the second log saying successfully pull the image. So first it is pulling the image and it successfully pull the image. And if you see here, created the container. So here it pull the image, and later pod itself is created as a pod. Instead of pod, this nginx image created as a container. So once container is created, it is starting over here, started container nginx. So if you can see this, all these scheduling logs, what is the status, normal, what is the status, like first it is pulling and it is pulled, and later the container created, and after its container is getting started. So this is how we can check all the logs of the particular pod. And now see how we can do SSH, or how we can log inside of the pod. So we would like to log inside of this nginx container. So for that, we need to pass some set of commands. Let me jump into this Visual Studio Code. I can show you clearly. So let me get the all the pods which are running inside of this node. So we have a demo pod and my pod. So I would like to log inside of this pod, and I would like to see how this nginx container is running. So I would like to log inside of this nginx container. So for that, we need to pass set of commands, which is kubectl, and exec is a command execution, and later I need to pass -it is a interactive mode, and I need to pass the pod because I'm logging inside of the pod into the container. So in my case, demo hyphen pod, and later I need to pass hyphen which is a bin bash. Through bash script, I'm going to log inside of this container. If I press enter, if you see here, guys, our case root at demo, because we have logged inside of this pod, and this is our pod name. But if you see, if we compare the above command and this command was related to my Windows machine, but now I am inside of my container. So if I do ls, I can see all the information which are inside of my container. So this is how you can log inside of container. You can do all the troubleshooting if you something messed up. So you can get the you can get the any task to be done inside of container. You can log through manually. So this is how we can log inside of pod through container, and you can check um, the status of image to be pulled and created instead of pod, and while running this set of commands. So this is just introduction of the pods, guys, and we'll come up with the different sessions with different concepts. Stay tuned with this channel, and we'll lot to discuss. We'll have a lot to discuss in the upcoming session. So that's all for this Kubernetes pod session, and we'll meet in the next section. Until then, stay tuned. Thank you. Thank you for watching.